ask you a question. How many of you have heard the name Lucy Stoner? Show of hands? Good. 1849. Lucy Stoner organizes a conference about women's rights. 1849. She owned her own women's newspaper for 50 years. She influenced Susan B. Anthony. Everybody heard of Susan B. Anthony? Yeah. And amazing women like Georgia O'Keeffe and Amelia Earhart referred to themselves as Lucy Stoners. She passed away in 1899. She never saw women get the vote. But the story goes that she told her granddaughter, keep fighting, keep moving forward. We can do this together. So I get asked the question, really, ma'am, do we really need another organization? Why are you doing this? Why have you gathered these people together? Well, we would like to share with you that there are many amazing organizations that support women, and we would like to connect with all of them. We believe it's not an or, it's an and. It's about what brings us together, not what divides us. It's about not being political, but about understanding that our health and well-being and the sustainability of this world is about all of us. And we need to be able to look at each other in a loving way, even those that disagree with us. And so, I want to give credit, here I am talking about women, to a really awesome older white guy. Yeah, and there are lots of really awesome older white guys in this room, so thank you. But one in particular who shared with me this idea of head, heart, hands leadership. And that is Professor Michael Beer from Harvard. So I heard him speak at Shine 2 years ago. And he got up and said, I've been doing all this research, in this crazy world, what do we really need? What is the research about the type of leadership that's going to move us forward? What kind of people do we need to be in place to actually have a sustainable world? And so he came up with this concept of head, heart, hands leadership. We do have to be smart. We need smart people leading this. And it has to be connected to compassion and care. And it's not just about the footprint. We talk a lot about carbon footprint and what we don't want to do to the world. But what do we want to do as leaders to give back? That's kind of the magic part of this, isn't it? The hands connection. So we at Global Women for Wellbeing said, well, that's nice to talk about that, ma'am, but let's think about this. What's something that we can actually hold on to where we can make change? And anybody who knows me, I'm like, it's great that we talk about this stuff, but seriously, what are we going to do? So we talk about 50 plus we plus 3 plus we. And yes, that does sound very much like 23andMe. I get it. Anybody here done 23andMe? Yeah. Very, very interesting. And you do find out some pretty interesting things about yourself. It gets to the DNA of who you are. Well, we need to get to the DNA, some of the hidden things that have been holding women back. We need to figure out what that is. Because despite some of the best efforts of companies and organizations, and some amazing women in this room that I know have been advocates throughout their careers, the numbers have not changed at the top in 10 years. So we need to do better. So we'll start with the 50. And I'm going to ask for a little audience participation here. So I'm going to ask this side of the room to stand up. Awesome. I have some great news for you guys. Almost all the health and well-being research that's been done in the past 70 years has been done for you. Isn't that great? That's awesome. And you know what else is really cool about this? All the symptoms and all this, we're going to base all our protocols on your symptoms and the way you metabolize, prescription drugs. Isn't that awesome?
Love it.
Fabulous, right? You guys over here, guess what? We're going to treat you based on their results. Right. So we're going to ask you to sit down. So for those of you that don't know, most health and well-being research has only been done on men and male animals. So your daughters, your wives, all the women in your life that you care about are being treated based on male physiology. And we need to get this research done. So now I'm going to ask this side of the room to stand up. And boy, do I have some awesome news for you guys. You will only have to provide half the amount of information that these guys over here do when you want buy-in for a project at work. It's cool, huh? And you know what? We're going to pay you a little bit more too. Awesome. And when you're up for a promotion, we are never going to talk about behind closed doors whether or not you can handle that leadership position if you have a second child. Not even going to come up. And you want to be an entrepreneur? They're only going to get 25% of the venture capital that you guys are going to get. Whoa, great. Not so good for you guys, though, is it? Okay. So I think I've probably made my point. We're basically leaving behind 50% of the global workforce. We can't do this and move forward. We can't have a sustainable world and not understand this is where women are coming from. And guess what? Because we're at a business conference and we want to talk about the business case, financial benefits. So if I can't get you from an ethical perspective or the right thing to do, guess what? I'm going to give you some numbers around this. And yes, you will get better financial returns having more women in leadership. Now, I could stand up here and I'd have to probably give you twice as much information for you to buy into that, but I put in some research. Pretty clear. So this one is the DDI Global Leadership Forecast. Pretty simple. Less women, poor returns. More women, better returns. Pretty easy. But wait, there's more. So we have Gallup. Pretty clear. Everybody trusts Gallup. They also said we have to pay attention to the 50% of the workforce that we've been ignoring. And again, because I'm very big on the business case, that's Harvard. That's the research. When you go from no women in leadership to 30% share, 15% increase in profitability. So I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you are business owners? Right. Great. So somebody comes into your office and says, oh my gosh, I know how I can get you a 15% increase in profitability. Would you do it? Would you be like, oh man, I'm all over this? Okay. So now we know it's the ethically right thing to do. We know that it's profitable. So why isn't it happening? Why isn't it happening? And I know we had a wonderful conversation last night, and a lot of us who have been in the business world and slogging through the mud, we're tearing our hair out about this. This is craziness. It has to change. But it is perception versus reality. And I know there's been a lot of talk about this, and my guess is Homo sapien, I'm guessing a bunch of people have read that here, talks about that. What are we perceiving? What do we think is happening that's holding us back? And so I found this little interesting stat. So I'm going to give you a chance to read this. And this is the Rockefeller Foundation. So if you can't read it, I'll read it for you. It might be a little difficult. 1 in 4 Americans think it is more likely that humans will colonize on Mars than half of the Fortune 500 CEOs will be women. There you go. It's the perception, and we need to change that. It's the right thing to do. It's the financially smart thing to do. And if we're going to have a sustainable world, we have to start to change that. I'm a big believer in research. We do need the numbers. We do need to be able to do the research and start to dig into more of what's happening. At the same time, we have to get more leaders to understand what these barriers are and get involved in, yes, we need to look at this differently. And from there, we also have to have the leadership to support the research. It kind of goes hand in hand. It's the chicken and the egg. And I am very proud to say that Global Women for Wellbeing, we just finished our first 2 research projects, which are research literature reviews. Because from our perspective, there's been a ton of research, and it's been wonderful. But we kind of need to take 2 steps back. What's been done? What's everything in this world, the health and well-being issues that women have, and everything in this world, our leadership world, and marry these 2 pieces together. Because as we start to look at this from a systems thinking perspective, this is where we can start to move things forward. But there is something that all of us can do, and I'm not going to call it any names, but I'm going to ask you to think about the presentations that you've seen so far from amazingly wonderful people. And how many of them quoted women? How many visual images in those presentations were all wonderful but old white men? What are the images that we're putting up there? Who are the women at the top, and how are you highlighting them in your own organization so that the young women coming through the door can see themselves at the top? And I will tell you that there are many companies that think that they're doing this right. I'm all about the numbers. And this comes out of Fortune magazine's research. There's not 150 up here, not one. And yet we know that women are graduating from college at a higher level now than men. By their first year, the end of their first year in the business world, on average, they make less than their male counterpart. That's where we are. And we have to change that. If we are head, heart, hands leaders, we've got to start talking about this and making a difference. So what's the timeline? If we don't do anything, we just go along as we've been going, using what we've been using, how long is it going to take to get there? Anybody want to take a guess? Okay. Dun, da, 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 2085. Yeah, 68 years to go. Well, I'm certainly not going to be here, and your daughter is probably not going to be here. And as far as I'm concerned, is that acceptable to anybody in this room? Thank you. Hell no is right. So the second thing that you can think about is the power of three. And the power of three is based on real research. So this lovely young lady grows up, and you put her on a management team, you put her on the board. Yeah, that's one. She's now your token female. She does not have enough voice to change the conversation. So you put a second one on. That's awesome. It's great. They can start to support each other. But the research shows it's still not enough to give women voice. And so you need three. And I would also say that it's not just three. We also have to look at this through a diversity lens. So I am going to say this. I just said it at the Global Wellness Summit. I've said it at Welcoa with a kindness and love in my heart. But look around this room. If we are going to have a sustainable world, we have to get more voices in the room. It can't just be, and I'm sorry I'm a white person, but I'm going to say it, we can't just have the white people talking. And so I'm asking you to visibly look at your organizations, look at your presentations, look at how you're talking about this. And you can start right at the bottom. We're not going to get qualified women on boards and qualified women into the C-suite right out of the gate. This is the long game. But you can start to look at your management teams. How can you start to get three dynamic women together on a team? Absolutely clear research about this. And this is something that all of us as leaders can actually start to enact in our organizations. So let's work towards that. How many of you had role models growing up? Especially the men in the room, right? I'm sure you could name a ton of folks, right? I just want to take a moment to recognize an incredible woman that early in my career, Ursi Fairbairn. Probably don't know her. She was the first woman to hold an executive position at IBM. And when I started my career, I was at Union Pacific for a while, and she was the senior VP of HR. And she was a wonderful leader. I happened to get very sick at that time, and she took the time. She was in charge of 50,000 employees. She found out about it. She called me into her office, and she said, "I'm so sorry. You call me if you need anything." And I mean that, and here's my personal number. And I actually used that number. I did. And she came through. And I will never forget that. Just an amazing human being. And we need to get more of those women at the top. We need to tell those stories about those women. Is that not head, heart, hands leadership? So we are the we in the well-e-ness. Now, why did I do that? So and it's funny because you were talking about technology and where we're going in the world. So has anybody seen WALL-E, the movie WALL-E? Yeah, so the little robot that's going around and protecting the green. We are the we in well-e-ness, are we not? All of us? But we've been in a world where it's been win at all costs. Win at all costs. And what are those costs? There are environments. How many of us have been forced as executives to miss part of a birthday party I know of executives that have walked out of weddings. The craziness around where we're going, that is not head, heart, hands leadership. Wasn't sure I was going to share this, but I'm going to do this real quickly, and hopefully I will not get too emotional. But I lost my father 3 weeks ago. There is no paycheck that could have paid me for the time that I had with him. I don't care what position you have, you will get to the end of your life, and it will not be about that deal that you did. I guarantee you it will not. Don't cheat yourself as an executive of that time. Don't. Please don't. Be a head, heart, hands leader. Do this so that you can role model it for the people in your organization. It is vital to their health and well-being, and it really is about a sustainable world and about loving people. And I also want to give a shout out to my dear friend Andrew, because he and I talk about this all the time. We have to compete collaboratively. If we are knocking each other off the top, how are we ever going to solve these problems? I don't know everything. I don't know about you, but I really don't know everything. But I know that you know something, and you know something, and you know something, and you know something. And when we can put our egos at the door and lovingly look at each other and listen to the wisdom that we each bring to the table, we can start to solve problems in a way that we haven't been able to do that before. And interestingly enough, Professor Beer talks about that. Head, heart, hands leaders, guess what the research showed? Who do you think does that best? And men that tap into the more feminine side of who they are. So I'm going to challenge you to think about how you're being a head, heart, hands leader. I'm going to ask you to think about 1 or 2 women that you work with and think about what you can do for them, how you can reach out to them, how you can support them, because we can start doing this now. I would also ask you to think about talking to us about what you're doing, because we are a collaborative organization. Global Women for Wellbeing is here to help connect. We've worked with UN Women. We work with SHINE up at Harvard School of Public Health. Well, COA is a supporter. I know, where are you, Ryan? I know you're here. Rachel Druckenmiller, that you heard this morning, is on our Young Leaders group. Samantha is attached to us. But we are about connecting people worldwide, not to compete. We can do this together if we're willing to do it. So now I'm going to ask you to do one other thing. I'd like all the women to stand up in the room. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being here. You rock. Stand up. Keep standing up. All right. Exercise for the guys. For any man in this room who knows a woman that's been touched by cancer, please stand up. For any man in the room that knows a woman that's been touched by Alzheimer's or dementia. For any man in the room that knows a woman that has been sexually abused or assaulted or sexually harassed. Do we have everybody standing up? For anybody who knows a woman that has been touched by heart disease. So this is what I mean about the we in well-being, right? It is all of us. Take a look around the room. There's nobody here that hasn't been touched in some way. But I know, when I look out here, that we can solve this together. I know we can do this. We are head, heart, hands leaders. And I would challenge us to get out of, really, I love this conference, but the truth is, in some ways, this is an echo chamber for us, isn't it? We love each other, and we do this, and it's great. And believe me, I have to do this, and it renews my soul every time I get an opportunity to be with my tribe. But the challenge is thinking about how we touch those people that are not part of our tribe. And so how do we translate head, heart, hands leadership in a way that the people that we normally don't talk to will understand? We can be so busy sharing our expertise, and I've done it too. I'm certainly guilty of that. But head, heart, hands leaders, at their very best, know how to listen and now to figure out how we translate what we do into a language that they understand. Isn't that what love really is? To truly listen and to truly connect and to truly honor who that person is. We can have a future full of hope. We can do that together. And I invite you to reach out to the person next to you. I'm going to ask you to hold their hand. Go ahead and do it. I know it might be scary, but you can do it, I promise. And I'm going to ask you to bring your hands up. We are the we in well-being. We can have a sustainable future. We can do it together. Thank you.